Hello and welcome to Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. This is Stefan, your host, British by birth, American by choice. The Founding Fathers crafted some remarkable documents that led to the creation of a great country founded on liberty and self-reliance. I have lived in the Euro-socialist nightmare, and I'm doing what I can to return this country to the vision that the Founding Fathers gave us. We need to strive to rebuild that shining city on the hill, for without us, the world has nowhere to turn for freedom. For the next hour, I will be presenting news, views, and guests that help keep the true spirit of America alive. And good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever you're listening to this show. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, British by birth, but American by choice. And very glad to be back here with you on episode 211 of Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. Want to say hi to the folks who are listening live. I see Paul Scrabo is there in the chat room. Good evening, Paul. And anyone else who's listening live, if you want to join me in the chat room, put your questions and comments there. Love to hear from you. Just click on the little green balloon at the bottom of the screen. Got a great show for you tonight. Lots of news and views. It's broadcasting again from the new Patrick Come Lately studio in Cumming, Georgia. I'm not north of the border and probably won't be going there for a while. So, hopefully have some good network connections at the moment as well, so not so many problems. And as I said, lots of news and views to get to. So let's start off straight away. And of course, now that I've moved back to Georgia, I have some local news for you, especially for anyone in the North Atlanta area. On Monday, April 14th, there is going to be a Have You Had Enough Tax Day rally on the Forsyth County Courthouse steps. 5:30 p.m. in Cumming. The Forsyth County Courthouse is right there at Courthouse Square, the center of Cumming. Starting at, as I said, 5:30 on April the 14th, and it's going to have a number of dignitaries there. Right now, we have promise of David Pennington, who's candidate for governor, who's going to be talking about wasteful government spending. Georgia House candidate Tom Knox, he's District 26, talking about eliminating the 16th and 17th Amendments. The U.S. Senate candidate Derek Grayson, talking about tax replacements and talking about fair tax versus flat tax versus a VAT tax. And I don't like the sound of that last one. VAT tax is something we want to keep away from. U.S. Congressman Tom Price, and he's going to be talking about the Unaffordable Health Care Act, or Obamacare, as I like to call it. The whole thing is supposed to finish at about 8:30 p.m., but of course it is politicians talking, so we'll see what time they really do finish. But for anybody in the North Atlanta area, I would definitely say if you can make your way across, it's a short drive up 400, get off at exit 14, turn west, and follow Highway 20. That'll take you right up into Cumming, and I'm sure by the time you get into the center of Cumming, you will not be able to miss all the people there with signs and flags, etc. And I will call up anybody listening in there. Please go. We need to make our voices heard. We need to show people that the Tea Party is not dead, and we've had enough of all this crazy tax stuff. So, folks, that's something to do, something positive that you can do if you're in the Georgia area. Of course, if you're not in the Georgia area or in the Atlanta area, find similar things. I'm sure there's lots of other tax day rallies, revolts going on around the country. Go there, show the people that we've had enough of all these high taxes wherever it is, whichever part of the country. Let's get lots and lots of crowds out on this tax day. Okay, on to the next piece of news. The next piece of news is rather an unfortunate one. It concerns another stupid Republican being harpooned by the LSM, this time for being caught kissing having an affair with one of his staffers. This is the representative from Louisiana who became famous because Duck Dynasty family supported him in the special election that took him to DC, and a lot of people believe it was Duck Dynasty's support that really won him that seat. And of course now he has betrayed Duck Dynasty, he's betrayed the voters of Louisiana, he's betrayed all of us, because he did run on a platform of strong family values. So why would he spoil it all by betraying us and those values? As far as I'm concerned, he should go, he should resign, he should be out of that seat. But stupid again, why do we always have to have these people make fools of themselves? Is it something in the water in DC? They get up there, they think they can get away with it. Is this something that was happening before he went up to DC? Haven't had time to find out all the details, but they run on family values, so why can't they hold to them? Are politicians by nature psychotic liars? Well, maybe my question was just answered. Yes, maybe they are. Of course, the other thing is that I do think it also shows how biased the lamestream media is when it comes to reporting about the right. People on the left can do pretty awful things. Look at Anthony Weiner. It took a lot of pressure basically coming from the right before the left-wing media would even report it. And yet as soon as this happened, boom, it's everywhere. Blogs, newspapers, TV, everything. And of course they're also yelling Republican, Republican, Republican. Whereas, don't remember recently, just a couple of weeks ago, there was a state congressman or a state senator in California, and they never reported which party he was from. He was brought up on corruption charges, and they never said which party he was from. Funny, you had to really dig deep to find out which party he was from. Yet with this one, this Republican gone off the rails immediately. It's right at the forefront in all the headlines. Sorry, folks, that's just not that's not honest reporting. Feel free to report this. I think the guy should be face the penalties for doing what he did, especially running on family values as his platform. But to immediately associate it with the Republicans. See, this is the problem. The left is just running so scared for 2014. They're looking for any excuses and trying to invent excuses. And it isn't just this. There are other things as well. So let's move on and let's talk about another topic that's been in the news today, and just another sign of left-wing hypocrisy. Folks, I've tried to be positive and trying to find positive things to talk about, but yet again and again, I keep getting these things shoved in my face of left-wing hypocrisy. And all I can do is tell you about it. Because we need to tell you about it, and you need to tell your friends about it, because they need to realize that when the 2014 election comes up, they're either going to vote for a bunch of hypocritical liars, or they're going to vote for people who sometimes step out of line, but in general have good ideas and are much better for the country than anything that's currently in power. So on to the next topic. And the next topic is the war on women. Yes, the war on women, which the White House claims Republicans are holding. And so the White House is signing executive orders to make equal pay for women and men mandatory. Now, through an executive order, Obama can't overrule Congress that much, and he's found out how much he is limited, but he can do it for federal contractors. He can basically say anybody who's doing work for the federal government, an executive order can be used to tell them what they can do. And so he's signed 2 executive orders. The first one is that, yes, federal contractors have to give equal pay for equal work, irrespective of gender. And secondly, he also added to that any federal contractors who have in their employment contracts that people are not allowed to talk about their salary, that is not permitted. They are not allowed to punish people for talking about their salary. And of course, this means that it is easier for women to find out what men are earning so that they can indeed take these federal contractors to court, if necessary, in order to get the money that they feel is due. Of course, what's hypocritical about this is that if you go and look at the statistics from the White House salaries, and you take the averages by men and women, you'll find out that the women in the White House are earning on average 88% less than the men. Yes, that's right, 88% less than the men. Of course, the press finally is waking up, and they've actually been giving the White House a bit of a hard time on this particular topic, which is, of course, a little embarrassing for the White House because they really wanted to switch to this topic as part of their attack on the Republicans preparing for 2014 and showing what bad people the Republicans are. And there is a vote coming up in the Senate. We'll talk about that shortly. But let's first of all talk about the hypocrisy in the White House. And the hypocrisy in the White House, like I said, this 88% that women earn on average less than men. So Jay Carney was having to explain that away. Well, first of all, he said, well, that 88% is actually a lot better than anything else in general industry throughout the rest of, let's say, the free market, the private sector. It's much better. In other words, it's okay to pay women less just so long as you don't pay them as little as they do in the private sector. Well, again, if that's hypocritical, or I don't know what is. However, so that was one of the excuses. The second excuse was that, and this one I think he really put his foot in his mouth. He said, well, actually, women in the White House do actually earn at a similar level, do earn the same as the men at that level. It's just that we don't have as many women at the higher levels. Aha! So now the truth comes out. Now we see what's really going on. So they're not really promoting women. They're not giving women equal stature. But instead of not paying them as much, they just don't give them the same good jobs, which in essence, think about it, is actually the same thing. So this is what is so hypocritical, and this is what the press, even the LSM, has been taking Jay Carney to task on, rightly so, I think, and he's really been having to fight off. So this attempt to kind of take this war on women and show how bad the Republicans are has rather backfired on them. Now, I said that they're doing this for a reason. That's because coming up in the next week or two is a vote in the Senate on some bills around equal pay for women. And the Republicans have said, yeah, sure, bring this bring this bill to the floor. We want to have the usual debate that we have in the Senate, and we want to tack on amendments, as happens with all bills and all the normal things. Well, Dingy Harry has decided that no, they're going to push this bill through without allowing any discussion, without allowing any amendments, so that the Republicans will decide to vote against it. And quite frankly, rightly so. Because to just say, well, you've got to vote for this or nothing at all is really just absolutely despicable. And I hope that the Republicans turn around and make a lot of fuss about it. Of course they won't, because they're just two lily-livered, weak-kneed nutcases. But I think it really is bad that Harry Reid's using these tactics. We talked about how nutty he's going last week, and this just shows that he's also just using absolutely despicable tactics. I guess it's politics, but politics as usual, and this is what turns off people to Washington, and rightly so as well. I think that whole Washington, D.C. establishment, both the right and the left, they're just playing games all the time, and it's just absolutely ridiculous, and they're playing games with each other and not thinking at all about anything of value for the country. Just very disappointing, just very disappointing. So the war on women, is it really a war on women? It's the Democrats are just as bad at it, but they trumpet it, and basically the Republicans just don't fight it, and they're stupid not to. They should be showing what we are doing, and showing how the Democrats are hypocritical about all of this. Okay, folks, we've got a couple of minutes to the next commercial break, so I'm going to switch to the next topic. And here's something that I just picked up. I can't remember where I got this from, somewhere on the internet, but I think it's a very good reminder. And basically, my question is, were the Founding Fathers psychics? Did they know what was going to be happening? Well, there have been so many things. I mentioned some last week. I've mentioned some in other shows where you say, yeah, what they said at the time about what we could expect to happen to the Constitution, to the government, if we didn't do this or if we did do that, they seem to know so well. It's amazing how well they were able to predict a lot of what's going on. And here's something. And this is one that's not widely quoted. There are other ones widely quoted about Ben Franklin. But here's one that's not so widely quoted, but it did come out of the constitutional discussions. And as you may know, when these were held in Philadelphia in 1787, they were actually held in secret. They wanted to have these discussions without everybody outside generally being involved. They wanted to keep it in the conclave of people that had been sent to Philadelphia. But of course, once it was all over and they came out, then there were a lot of things that came out, and this is one of them that Ben Franklin said about the Constitution. And again, if you read it, it shows you exactly what has happened to us today, and you just wonder how he could have been so far-seeing to know that this would happen. But I guess they studied a lot of other political situations, countries that had risen and fallen. They did a lot of study in those days, and I think they knew exactly what to expect, and they said it. So here's what Ben Franklin said. "We have been assured, sir, in the sacred writings that, except the Lord build the house, they labour in vain that build it. I firmly believe this, and I also believe that without his concurring aid, we shall succeed in this political building no better than the builders of Babel. We shall be divided by our little partial local interests. Our projects will be confounded, and we ourselves shall become a reproach and a byword down to the future ages. And what is worse, mankind may hereafter, from this unfortunate instance, despair of establishing government by human wisdom and leave it to chance, war, or conquest. Folks, I think that so well describes the situation that we're in today. We shall be divided by a little partial local interests. Our projects will be confounded. Think about that, folks, but that's very, very true. And think about it over the next break. I will be back right after these messages.
Are you paying too much for your car insurance policy? Have you shopped your current plan in the last year? If you haven't, then you probably are paying too much. You could save up to 40% on your current car insurance coverage just by making a free call right now. Doesn't it make good sense to pay less for something you have to pay for anyway? And car insurance is one of those things. You got to have car insurance, whether you have one car or 10 cars. So why not see if you can pay a lot less for it right now? One quick 3-minute call and you could save hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. We'll compare the leading car insurance companies and get you coverage that could save you up to 40% on your car insurance. Call now for a free quote. Call 800-603-9980. 800-603-9980. 800-603-9980. 800-603-9980. That's 800-603-9980.
Are you tired of commuting to a job that makes someone else rich, working harder than ever, but getting nowhere? Do you hate spending hundreds of dollars every week on daycare, having someone else raise your children? With our opportunities, you can start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss, work from home, and live a happier life. At Be the Boss Network, you'll find hundreds of work-from-home opportunities that you can literally start today and be earning money as soon as next week. Go to freedom112.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You get to be the boss. Get out of the rat race. Work from home. Go to freedom112.com right now and change your life today. That's freedom112.com. Go to freedom112.com and start earning money as soon as next week. You be the boss. Go to freedom112.com.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. And thank you for sticking with me through the break. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, welcoming you back to the next segment of the show, going down towards the bottom of the hour here. And just want to thank you for joining me. We were talking about the Founding Fathers being psychics. I quoted something from Ben Franklin. Of course, there are plenty of other examples, especially if you read the Federalist Papers. You'll see a lot in there, and I hope to bring a few of those back into the show as we start winding up towards the 2014 election, because I think those guys, as I said, they were almost psychic in what they were able to kind of warn us about what would happen and has happened. Anyway, let's move on, and this is actually a little bit more now. We're focusing on 2016, but some more news here, so let's move on to the next topic. And the next topic is the State Department misplacing more than $6 billion in contracts. This all under the reign or the management of the world's smartest woman. Of course, this is the way that I'm sure the LSM is going to characterize Hildebeest. And Hildebeest is likely going to be running for president in 2016, and I really hope we come up with a good conservative GOP candidate to run against her, because she will be difficult to beat. Then again, if you misplace $6 billion of contracts, then that's something that definitely could be held against her. I mean, how hard is it to properly file contracts? Now, Did we actually lose $6 billion because of these misfiled contracts? Not really. But it is important to do your job properly, because if these things aren't filed, then they can't be monitored properly. So we may not lose $6 billion, but we're likely to be losing billions of dollars because this information's not being filed properly, right? But it turns out, right, so the question was, how hard is it to properly file contracts? Well, it turns out it is hard for some people. But then again, some people get a job just because of their resume, because of other things they've done, not because they have the ability or the inclination to do the job well, but just because they know someone, or they're part of the right group, part of the right party, part of the right demographic. Any idea who else that might apply to? But yes, right now we're talking about the State Department, not about the White House. So this comes from an Inspector General's report that finds out while Hildebeest was Secretary of State, the State Department was apparently completely incapable of filing its contract information, and as a result of that, $6 billion flowed out of the door without anybody keeping account of it. Now, I'm sure some of that $6 billion was spent as it was supposed to, but if nobody's keeping account of it, then you never know how much of that $6 billion was correct, how much of it wasn't. Now, as we now know how much of a mess we get if we elect a president with no executive management experience whatsoever, I think we want a strong, competent manager next time, don't we? Well, looks like the left have already decided we don't need that, because if we're going to get Hillary, it's obvious here that while she's not directly responsible for filing the contracts, it happened on her watch. It also happened before her watch. But if she was a strong, competent manager, she would have made sure that during her tenure that these sort of bad practices would have stopped. Instead, she just allowed contract files to be incomplete or could not be located, and as the Inspector General said, the failure to maintain contract files adequately creates significant financial risk and demonstrates a lack of internal control over the department's contract actions. Well, any business person will tell you if you have no control over something, then it is likely that there will be corruption, that there will be malfeasance. Anything can go wrong and nobody will know that it's going wrong. There will be all sorts of shenanigans, just unbelievable. The IG found repeated examples of poor contract file administration over the years. So this is, just to be honest, it does to appear to have started before her time. But, as I said before, it's clear that it continued unabated, may even have got worse during her tenure. And she didn't do anything to correct it. Well, we've got another one of these people who doesn't know how to run anything, doing the same to our government. So do we want another person like that to take over and make things even worse again? I agree with the report that came off the internet where they say this country has huge problems and it might be nice to elect a president who has demonstrated some ability to come into an organization and correct poor practices. That's what we should be doing. Come in and sort things out. So, talking about that, well, we'll talk about that after the break. But let's just look at 5 things that you should be looking for if you're considering electing a person should be someone with an impressive list of achievements as a leader, a manager, and a policy thinker, in addition to being honest and trustworthy. So here they are. Achievements as a leader, achievements as a manager, achievements as a policy thinker, honest, trustworthy. How many of those do you think Hillary matches up to? The report says 0 for 5, and I agree with them. So the question is this nation seriously idiotic enough to elect this woman? Well, let's see after the break. I've got a little bit more on this Hildebeest thing, because while we're looking at 2014, we've also got to be thinking about 2016 and finding us a very, very good candidate. Anyway, folks, let's take another quick break here, and I'll be back right after these messages.
Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, auto pay, and paperless billing and other restrictions apply. If you can't see the difference, why pay the difference? Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Only Dish brings you the best in entertainment for less than $20 a month. Cut the cable and don't get directed. Switch to Dish, because at just $19.99, Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. It's so simple. The same channels cost less with Dish. So since you can't see the difference, don't pay the difference. Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Get premium movie channels free for 3 months, starting at just $19.99. Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. Call now to save with Dish. Dial 1-800-865-5017. That's 1-800-865-5017. The same channels for less than $20 a month. Dish. Call 1-800-865-5017 for details.
Why spend more than you have to on your life insurance? Did you know that term life insurance rates have fallen over 60% in the last 15 years? At the Life Insurance Quote Line, we monitor the rates, features, and financial strength of hundreds of life insurance products. For example, a healthy 40-year-old can protect his family with $500,000 of 10-year level term for less than $20 a month. Rates for women are even lower. And don't forget to ask us about the new term life policies that guarantee your money back even if you don't die. Since 1986, we've helped tens of thousands of people just like you save a fortune on their life insurance. Why not find out how much you can save? Write down this number and call today for your free quote. 1 5-minute call is all it takes. Call 800-915-9734. 800-915-9734. That's 800-915-9734. Rates, policy forms, and availability vary by state.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. And I just want to remind you a little bit of who I am.
Patriot come lately. British by birth, American by choice. Just like the Founding Fathers. The voice of the conservative resistance.
And hopefully after 2014 it won't be the conservative resistance anymore. It'll be the conservative watchdog, because hopefully by then we'll have a majority back in the Senate. We'll keep our majority in the House, and then we'll be able to keep our eyes on what our GOP representatives and senators do, and it'll be watchdog rather than resistance. But anyway, for those of you that are listening live, remember you can contact me through the chat room here at Spreaker. There's a little green bubble at the bottom of the page. Type in your comments, questions, anything you want to pass on to me there. Every so often I will peek across into the little window in the corner there and see what's going on. If you're listening to one of the recordings, either at archives.patrickcomelately.us, or you're listening via Red State Talk Radio Network, that great network of many, many different conservative hosts, or even if you're listening via KTFL out there in Phoenix, 1620 AM, where some of the Red State Talk Radio feed is rebroadcast, and Patrick Come Lately goes out on that as well. Obviously, you're listening to a recording, so you can't get along on the in the chat room, but then you can send me an email and contact me in other ways. So let me just give you a quick hint how you can contact me. And I do like to hear from my listeners. Please send me comments, questions, whatever, as I will let you know in this quick little jingle. Oh, and of course, hopefully it should play if I press the right button.
If you would like to comment on any of the topics discussed on the show, please email me via stephen@patriotcomelately.us or go to the show's website www.patriotcomelately.us and click on the contact button. You can also write your comments on the show's Facebook page. Just search in Facebook for the Patriot Come Lately Show.
So as I said, do contact me. I like to hear from you. And again, if you're listening live, do try and put something in the chat room. Paul is out there, and thanks for being there, Paul, and just putting something out there. It's nice to know people are there. I've mentioned this before. I love this Spreaker site. I think it gives much better quality in terms of the audio than the old Blog Talk Radio site. But one thing it doesn't do, it doesn't actually tell me how many live listeners are out there at the time of the show or during the show. I think I can find out afterwards, but not during the show. So the only way I would know is if you go to the chat room and just pop something in there and say, hey, I'm listening. Even do that, that's nice to know. And like Paul's there, means I know I'm not talking to into a black hole. Of course, most of my listeners are ones that listen to the recordings, and I do appreciate each and every one of you, but it's also fun to do this live and to know that you're up against the clock and up against doing something really live. Anyway, let's get back to the news. And before the news, we were talking about Hildebeest and her achievements, and said there were 5 things to measure someone on before you sort of want to choose them for president. Achievements as a leader, achievements as a manager, achievements as a policy thinker, honesty and trustworthiness. So let's go with those first 3. Achievements. You would think, while we don't think she's had any achievements, you would think that at least Hildebeest herself would be able to name some achievements. Well, guess what? Here's a little piece of interesting news. Several weeks ago, I think this was in January or so more than actually a few months ago now, a reporter visited the Democratic Party's winter meeting to see if attendees could name a single tangible achievement of Hillary Clinton during her tenure as Secretary of State. But worse than that, Hildebeest herself can't do that. Now, remember how Texas Governor Rick Perry was ridiculed in the press for his 2011 debate brain cramp when he couldn't identify the third of 3 federal government agencies he would eliminate? Well, at a meeting in New York, by the way, this was held, of all places, at the David H. Koch Theatre. Can you imagine something more ironic, given how the left are really trying to turn the Koch brothers into bad guys? That's really ironic. I love that. Anyway, she was asked a question, and this was a Women of the World Summit. She was speaking there, and she was asked a question about what she was most proud of in looking at her time as Secretary of State. She rambled on, but never identified one specific accomplishment. And pardon me for reading this. but I really have to read the transcript here. So, well, I really see that was good. That's why he wins prizes. What's that got to do with her tenure as Secretary of State? But okay, look, I really see my role as Secretary, in fact, leadership in general in a democracy, as a relay race. I mean, you run the best race you can run, you hand off the baton. So some of what hasn't been finished may go on to be finished. So when President Obama asked me to be Secretary of State, and I agreed, we had the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. We had 2 wars. We had continuing threats from all kinds of corners around the world that we had to deal with. So it was a perilous time, frankly. And what he said to me was, look, I have to be dealing with the economic crisis. He was. Anyway, sorry, excuse me, this is my comment on the side. I want you to go out and represent us around the world. Okay. And it was a good division of labor, went on Mrs. Clinton, went on Hildebeest, because we needed to make it clear to the rest of the world that we are going to get our house in order. I think he made it very clear to the rest of the world that we did not get our house in order. But okay, that's my comment. We're going to stimulate and grow and get back to positive growth and work with our friends and partners. Excuse me, aren't we working with our enemies? So I think we did that. I'm very proud of the stabilization and the really solid leadership that the administration provided, that I think now leads us to be able to deal with problems like Ukraine, because we're not so worried about a massive collapse in Europe and China, trying to figure out what to do with all their bond holdings and all the problems we were obsessed with. But excuse me, Hildebeest, we asked what you did, not what King Barry did and all his other goons around the place. I think we really restored American leadership in the best sense. Leadership? Leadership? What leadership? That once again, people began to rely on us as setting the values, setting the standards. Ha! That's the biggest joke ever. I just don't want to lose that because we have a dysfunctional political situation in Washington. Yeah, because Harry Reid won't allow any votes on the floor unless it's something that is totally something that he wants and that the Democrats want. And then, of course, a lot of particulars. So I'm finishing my book so you'll be able to read all about it. Well, at the end of the line, Hildebeest just told us why I was hired and why we're better off now, and I've taken parts of that and already started to tear it to pieces, and we could spend a whole show on tearing that to pieces, but that's maybe another time. But she framed it around the administration's tired old, look at the awful mess we inherited from Bush and how we sorted out. It's all about the economy. She had nothing to do with the economy. She admits that. And so she was totally unable to tell the questioner anything at all that she had done herself. No achievements. She just went out there and walked around and did absolutely nothing. Now, this particular post that was on the internet, the reporter also said, do a Google News search on Hillary accomplishment. Use those 2 words, Hillary accomplishment. And no establishment press outlet has anything coming up if you do that. The only one that comes up is Fox News. That too is rather ironic that the only one that has anything about a Hillary accomplishment is Fox News. And I just wonder if the text there is Hillary no accomplishment. But anyway. However, Hildebeest had a gaffe that's probably as bad as anything that Joe Biden said. She was asked a question and she just basically didn't answer it. And as far as the press is concerned, she's untouchable. It's not reported. Nobody makes any fuss about it. we better get used to this, because we're going to see a lot of this coming up to 2016. They're going to skate over Whitewater. They're going to skate over Lewinsky. They're going to skate over everything else, because the left will do everything they can to get this horrible, horrible woman into power. And folks, as bad as Obama was, this is going to be just as bad. We've seen that this woman has no management skills. She's never done anything other than sat there in the White House. Folks, do everything you can to make sure that she doesn't get elected. And that's what I'm going to be doing too. Anyway, folks, time for the final commercial break. And we'll be into the last segment of the show. So here we go.
Are you at least 62 years old like me? Could you use an extra $50,000, $100,000 or more to live a better life? Then please consider the benefits a reverse mortgage can provide to you. With a reverse mortgage, you can have your mortgage payments stopped altogether and get equity out of your home to live on. And you can use the money to help you live a better life. How nice would that be, not to have a mortgage payment? Qualifying for a reverse mortgage is simple, since there are no income, asset, employment, or credit requirements. However, you must be 62 years or older, own your home outright, or have a very low balance on the mortgage, and be prepared to live in it throughout the rest of the loan. Call now for more information.
800-704-1662. 800-704-1662. 800-704-1662. That's 800-704-1662.
I will never forget the day my son Jeremy told me he hated me and slammed the door in my face. I'm behavioral therapist Janet Lehman. Behavior problems can turn the child you love and your life into a nightmare. That's why my husband James and I created the Total Transformation, the step-by-step program that shows you how to fix the worst behavior problems and get your child to respect and listen to you again. No matter what the behavior, defiance, backtalk, angry outbursts, disrespect, we can help you stop it. Now you can get the Total Transformation for free. All you need to do is get the program and let us know how it works for you. You can keep it forever for free.
Limited number of free programs available. Call now. 1-800-259-1409. 1-800-259-1409. 1-800-259-1409. That's 1-800-259-1409.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. And welcome back. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, British by birth, American by choice. And we're into the last segment of episode 211 of Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. Just got another couple of little fun items that we can handle before the end of the show, and I do want to, one's a little bit of fun, one's less fun, but I do want to quickly bring them to you. So let's, new topic. And the first new topic, you may remember recently the fuss about the CEO of Mozilla, the makers of the Firefox browser, that basically had to resign, got fired, got pressured out of his job because a number of years ago he had supported Proposition 8. He had paid money to support Proposition 8 in California. Of course, Proposition 8 was the proposition that was struck down by a federal judge, but basically that said marriage is a union between a man and a woman, and same-sex marriage, therefore, cannot exist. And this is a long-running discussion. I've thrown my 2 cents in there and said, the way to resolve it is civil unions. They have that in Europe. Of course, they take it to extremes there. in the UK recently, a woman married her dog because, of course, once you go the civil union route and you can have same-sex marriages, then you can marry other things. So she married her dog. There's another woman in the Netherlands, and I've had this on the show, I think, actually a couple of years ago, but I have to bring it up because it really is such a stupid thing. Because the law says, well, basically, if you can have same-sex marriage, you can marry anyone, anything. So she decided to marry herself, and she went to City Hall in her dress and got married to herself. It's just absolutely absurd. But anyway, so this, you may remember, this poor guy basically lost his job because he'd paid money to support Proposition 8, and the charge to have him removed or to have Firefox removed from people's computers was actually led by a site called OkCupid, which is some kind of dating site. I don't know if it does particular things for gay people or whatever, but anyway, this OkCupid kind of spearheaded this whole thing. However, it turns out that the CEO of OkCupid, Sam Yagan, also once donated money to an anti-gay candidate. And Yagan, by the way, is also CEO of Match.com. So if there's two sites you want to throw off your computer, maybe there's a two. He donated not as much, about half the amount that Ike donated to the Proposition 8 support, but he donated $500 to Representative Chris Cannon, who was a Republican running in Utah in 2004, so also a number of years ago. Well, Chris Cannon was a very right-wing person. He voted a number of anti-choice measures, so anti-abortion, anti-same-sex marriages, etc. So, what, how come OkCupid can get away with it, or Sam Yagan can get away with it, and Ike couldn't? It's just a question of who's shouting the loudest. The squeakiest wheel gets the oil. But he also did that. Now, he put out a statement clarifying his intentions behind his donation. And let me just quote this. He says, "A decade ago, I made a contribution to Representative Chris Cannon because he was the ranking Republican on the House subcommittee that oversaw the Internet and intellectual property, matters important to my business and our industry." So, of course, he's admitting there that these business people pay money to politicians because those politicians are in charge of things that affect them. Now, is that bribery and corruption? As far as I'm concerned, absolutely. Anyway, so I expect responsibility for not knowing where he stood on gay rights. In particular, I unequivocally support marriage equality, and I would not make that contribution again today. So in other words, I got found out, I got caught, and folks, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. Typical businessmen, typical politicians. I mean, it's just all a load of BS, folks, and it's about time we stopped it. It's about time we sent honest people there. Okay, folks, it's the end of the show. Got to cut it short here. So thanks for listening, TTFN, and please join me again next week with a report from the Tax Day rally incoming. Thank you for listening to the show. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's topics. Whether you listened live, to a recording, or to a rebroadcast, I appreciate the time you share with me. We need to spread the message of liberty far and wide, so please tell your friends and family about the show. Thank you for helping to keep the beacon of hope burning. This is Stefan, your Patriot Come Lately, signing off. God bless America, and remember, L3, long live liberty.